Meditation and Spiritual Life, Swami Yatiswarananda. Place of personal God in spiritual life. In the holy personality, the devotee seeks a link between the finite and the infinite. First, he is drawn by the wonderful charm of the personality and then, through it, realizes the infinite. We need something to center our feelings upon. If we do not feel attracted to some holy form, some holy personality, we naturally take up some human idol and become attached to it. But in these great ones, though we are at first charmed by the human aspect, later on we find the divine in them. Here lies the necessity of the worship of an incarnation. If we want to construct a building, we must find a model. In these God men, we find that their bodies and minds are like glass cases through which shines the cosmic spirit, whereas ours is at best an iron case. Our task is to transmute this iron case into a glass case. Through their superhuman spiritual endeavor, the Godmen have shown us the way to transmute the iron case into a glass case. Even these Godmen had to perfect their bodies and minds through regular spiritual practice and culture. They too had to perfect their instruments. In the descriptions of these Godmen in the Puranas, we find a wonderful blend of the personality and the principle. In their case, the superconscious is manifest through the conscious. And if we are attracted by their human aspect, we will come in touch with the divine aspect in due course. Even the out and out Advaitin is prepared to place before us thoughts that can be understood and grasped by us in our present state. He is willing to take us by the hand and lead us on to higher and higher truths. Idolatry is a necessary stage which people must outgrow, and if people do not take up some holy idol to center their feelings and emotions upon, they will take up some awful human idol, some man puppet or woman puppet, and worship that and become slaves to that. Which is the better idol? An ordinary idol of flesh and blood, or an idol which represents a higher ideal? In the human idol, you do not find a higher idol. And if you try to think of the abstract becomes and remains abstract, while the human idols, the man puppets or the woman puppets, attract all our attention, become essentially real to us, and then everything else follows as a matter of course. To the extent we are able to think of the divine in us as distinct from our personality, as distinct from this man form or woman form of ours, to that extent we will be able to think of the divine in others too as distinct from their form, as distinct from their personality, and then we will be safe. Then we will never become slaves to any male or female puppet. The conceptions about the nature of the divine being, whom men seek, vary with the growth in the knowledge of themselves. Sri Ramakrishna observes There are three classes of devotees. The lowest one says God is up there. That is, he points to heaven. The mediocre devotee says that God dwells in the heart as the inner controller, but the highest devotee says God alone has become everything. All the things that we perceive are so many forms of God. Further, he clarifies the relation between the personal and the impersonal aspects of the Godhead as follows. Think of Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, as a shoreless ocean. Through the cooling influence, as it were, of the bhakta's love, the water has frozen at places into blocks of ice, and in other words, God now and then assumes various forms for his lovers and reveals himself to them as a person. But with the rising of the sun of knowledge, the blocks of ice melt. Then one does not feel anymore that God is a person, nor does one see God's form.